vaccines are not just useless but also harmful.
Have vaccines been tested properly?
Hundreds of papers that COVID vaccine has led to myocarditis, which is the
If vaccines don't work, how did we eradicate polio then?
when India claims that we have made India polio free in 2014, what they did was
Are you not scared talking about this?
no, that was one of the most dangerous and experimental vaccines that were given without no long-term safety data. Hepatitis B vaccine contains 250 micrograms of aluminum. We know aluminum is neurotoxic, is safe and effective. I would give him 30 lakh rupees.
HPV vaccine, does that cause infertility? Is that true?
So 2.3% serious adverse events happened within 6 months of vaccines are not safe and effective. It can also cause death. So they were already planning that. So it was not a virus that had to be stopped through a vaccine.
Coronavirus pandemic was planned, whether it was a lab-made or a man-made. Kamalpreet Singh, operating online as Go Satwik, is a social media health coach and author who promotes whole food, plant-based diets for diabetes remission, alongside controversial health and anti-vaccine views. So let's welcome and talk to all the reports which he published, and also he wrote a book, Vaccine Crime Report. Kamalpreet ji, welcome to the show.
Sat Sri Akal, thank you so much for having me.
Sat Sri Akal ji, thank you. Kamalpreet ji, you are well known in Punjabi community, especially in the social media, and you operate as a Go Satwik. What is the knowledge and value you bring to the public that attracts to your platform?
I'm most well known for my published book, that is the Vaccine Crime Report.
Yes.
This book compiles evidence and data from studies which are peer-reviewed, have been published in international medical journals, like nice journals like Lancet and also British Medical Journal and other important journals that are reputed. So peer-reviewed studies have been compiled in this book that show that when the vaccine zealots make the claim that vaccines are safe and effective is actually not true. And when you will go through this book, you will realize that vaccines are not just useless, but also harmful. And that can be really harmful and cause irreversible damages, which might require you to go for therapies and pharmaceutical interventions for the rest of your life. We will talk on this also. But about myself, the other thing that I'm well known for is for my work in diabetes remission. So I have a doctoral degree in my research that shows how you can improve your metabolic health by going on a whole food plant-based diet, which would lead to remission of type 2 diabetes. So if you do not take any drugs and go on a whole food plant-based diet, according to the research papers that we have published on our website, you can see those. And by doing those methods, you might be able to achieve non-diabetic glucose range without the use of drugs. So this is what is diabetes remission. As per the American Diabetes Association, 6 HbA1c, that is 3 months average sugar below 6.5% without the need for medication for more than 6 months, for more than 3 months. So this has already been demonstrated in various randomized controlled trials, as well as in my own practice, we have seen this. Besides that, some people also know me for my work in the field of Gurbani, that is the Guru Granth Sahib Ji's meanings, which I often do on my website, on my social media, and people do hear those. And some of those might be controversial, but I always speak what is backed by evidence and research.
Kamalpreet ji, you are not a doctor, but you are a PhD, and as you said, doctorate degree, and you got the PhD. That's why you write Kamalpreet Singh, and your education is PhD and doctorate. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So why this book was written? Like, are you not scared? Because going against the medical science, what kind of data you have, what are your research? So are you not scared that writing against the vaccines is something maybe backlash you?
Your question is very valid, especially if you talk about board certified physicians like Dr. Paul Thomas. This is Dr. Paul Thomas who published the book Vax Fact. That it was published in 2022, but the story goes on. When in 2020, he published a study showing that the vaccinated group of children in his practice were having at least 3 to 4 times more episodes of asthma, allergies, dermatitis, eczema, and ADHD, and all other kinds of behavioral disorders. He published that study, and also in the study, you can see that the unvaccinated group of children had much less doctor visits and much less need for hospitalizations and much less incidence of childhood illnesses. So when this study was published, he got a call that your license has been suspended. You don't need to go to the office. And soon after that, his study was retracted, and he was vilified all across the medical community and the scientific community. So your question is very valid that if I'm not scared of that, and the reason is I am not under their scrutiny because I don't work for the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I have a doctoral degree. That's my independent degree, and therefore I do not need to worry about what these people have to do about canceling my license and doing those things. But yes, I have faced severe issues, especially in my community and the social media and the loss of reputation that they try to do by creating fake posts against me on the internet. Even Times of India, that is a most read newspaper in India, they published my photos and my name and tried to defame me that I'm spreading misinformation about vaccines when I say that COVID vaccine might lead to long-term adverse events, myocarditis, cancers, and other issues. Um, but the thing is, that was not fake news. Now it has been proven in like hundreds of papers that COVID vaccine has led to myocarditis, which is the inflammation of myocardium, which has been actually verified through autopsies, which is the gold standard to verify if the vaccine caused the injury or not. It has already been proven that vaccines can cause myocarditis. Yes.
Speaking loudly on this issue, especially when we see so many incidents happen after the COVID vaccine. Again, my question: are you not scared talking about this?
Whom should be I scared of?
Okay, okay, that's fair enough. Kamalpreet ji, are vaccine proven beneficial in the trials? Have vaccines been tested properly?
Okay, so how do we test vaccines? So for testing vaccines, the gold standard way in the scientific method is to perform a placebo controlled trial, which I often call pure placebo controlled trial. What that means is you take a group that receives the novel vaccine, the new vaccine that you're trying to give the population. So that intervention group receives the vaccine, for example, say a group of 10,000 people receiving the vaccine. And on the other hand, you have another 10,000 people who do not receive the vaccine. Instead, they receive a fake injection, which is a saline placebo, so that they feel that they received something, but it is actually not the intervention, it is just a placebo. And now, after 5 to 10 years, you track both the groups, and then you see what was the incidence of the disease that we were trying to prevent from the vaccine in the vaccinated group, which is the intervention group, and what was the incidence of the same disease in the control group, which did not receive the vaccine. This would prove the efficacy of the vaccine. The other thing is safety. Now we measure the adverse events that were reported, say type 1 diabetes, autism, neurological disorders, cancers, infertility, all sorts of health complications in both the groups. And then we come to a conclusion that taking this vaccine is beneficial or not, and is the benefits outweighed by the risk, that is the adverse events reported by it. So unfortunately, the bad news is none of the clinical trials have been performed properly for all of the routinely injected childhood vaccines. So childhood vaccines like polio, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hepatitis B, the trials were highly flawed, especially in the placebo group. Why? The placebo that they write in the studies is not actually a pure placebo. That is actually another ingredient of the vaccine, or it is some other vaccine that is given, some old kind of vaccine or some other vaccine, or sometimes they give antibiotics. All these substances are not placebo. They cannot be termed as pure placebo. They are
But
actually.
you talked about polio vaccine. In childhood, we also took the polio vaccines. So if vaccines don't work, how did we eradicate polio then?
That's a very good question. So that's probably something that is the greatest myth about vaccinations.
Mhm.
So with the polio, let's talk about what polio is, what eradicated it, or what didn't eradicate it, and as well as what's the role of the vaccine in this whole scenario. So poliomyelitis is the disease which is a paralysis caused by the inflammation of the gray matter in your spinal area. So
Mhm.
now this happens mainly due to chemical exposures like lead, arsenic, DDT. There have been studies that have been conducted which have shown when the usage of pesticides like DDT, arsenic, and lead increased in the agriculture, they were sprayed on the animals, they were sprayed on the swimming pools and the children. The rates of poliomyelitis, the paralysis, increased steadily. And when those chemicals were stopped, the rates of paralysis started coming down. Now, here's the thing, when those chemicals were stopped, around the same time, they launched the oral polio vaccine and the other polio vaccine. And now the vaccines took the credit for something which they did not do. And here's the thing, we had two researches conducted in India. In Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, there was a research conducted that in the years when they gave more polio drops to the children, the rates of paralysis actually increased. And when less drops of polio vaccine were given, the rates of paralysis actually decreased. Now, here's the trick. When India claims that we have made India polio free in 2014, what they did was they simply changed the diagnostic name of polio to acute flaccid paralysis or transverse myelitis or Guillain-Barré syndrome, so that paralysis is still happening, but that is non-polio paralysis. So we can claim that polio has been eradicated even though the same disease condition is still prevalent in India. And you would be shocked to know that the polio drops are actually causing about 30 to 50,000 cases of paralysis each year. And that is the reason why in 2020, oral polio drops, the drops given through the mouth, have been discontinued in the United States and Canada. We have an injectable polio vaccine. Oral polio drops have been completely removed. And India and other third world countries, those drops are still being given. Now, as far as my research is concerned, I do not believe, as per the research, that injectable polio vaccine or oral polio vaccine, I don't think any of them is beneficial, and that's the sole reason I do not give any vaccine to my children, including polio. My children have not received polio, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, none of the vaccines,
And what
because we
about
know.
COVID vaccine? Did you ever took the COVID vaccine when it happened?
No, that was one of the most dangerous and experimental vaccines that were given without no long-term safety data. Therefore, we did not take the COVID vaccine, and none of my family members took the COVID-19
So means
vaccine.
you had not traveled because there was a complete travel ban. If you don't have a vaccine, you cannot travel.
That was a policy. I did travel during COVID. I took flights. I went from Toronto to Edmonton. I went to my stores. I went to the public transport without the vaccine and also without the mask. I did not even wear the mask. Even though I had to face police, I had to confront them, but I still did not wear the mask or take the vaccine, but I still traveled because remember, vaccines are voluntary by law. By law, you cannot be forced to take the vaccines. They might decline you some services.
But they
Trying,
did a mandate on the vaccine. If you don't take, you cannot enter the halls, you cannot enter the plane, you cannot travel, you cannot do, and even employees were fired from their jobs.
yes, that was, I would say, is a criminal activity to force a vaccine or experimental procedure on the public. And it was a fear propaganda. People were scared, and that's why they were. I mean, it was not a literal forcing them, but when you say that you can't go to the job, you will be fired, and you can't travel, it is more like a coerced decision to take the vaccine.
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing. When I flew on the airplane without the vaccine and the mask, I use my religious exemption. How the religious exemption works is in any religion, whether it is Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, or Christian, you are not allowed abortion. So this vaccine, COVID vaccine, was developed using human embryonic kidney cells. HEK 293 was used to produce this COVID-19 vaccine. And as a result, abortion is not something which is considered holy and religious in any of the religions. So Sikh, Christians, Muslims, Hindu, all of them have a right to decline the vaccine, and not just the COVID vaccine, even the vaccines like MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella, that contains about it human lung cells. So which is when you abort a baby and take out the lungs from it and use the tissues from those lungs and then you culture the vaccine, then that's how it is made. So people of religion and faith who believe in God and do not consider abortion who consider abortion something that is not approved by the religion, they can take religious exemption, and that's what I did.
So, what kind of ingredients were found in vaccines? Can you name some of them?
Well, that's a very important question, and that's where my eyes started opening when I started researching into the ingredients that the vaccine contains. If you would go on the page number 22 of Vaccine Crime Report, I've mentioned some of the ingredients that the vaccine contains, and here get ready to listen what this is.
And
So
is this book available online also? Can someone want to read? Can they do that online?
yes, this is available on Amazon, Canada, US, India. Yes, you can buy it.
Okay.
So when you go on page number 22, the vaccines contain aluminum, formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde, mercury, polysorbate 20 and 80, pork gelatin, human albumin, fetal bovine serum, which is blood from cows, monkey kidney cells, aborted human fetal cells. It could be the kidney cells or it could also be the lung tissues, then neomycin, streptomycin, then urea, animal DNA, egg protein, yeast protein, chicken protein, potassium chloride, potassium phosphate, sodium borate, sodium hydroxide, sodium phosphate, monosodium glutamate, messenger RNA, even shark liver oil also. These things are in the vaccine. So when I started reading this list of ingredients, I was like, which of this ingredient do you think is going to make my child healthy? I don't think so, any of them.
Mhm. So, which vaccine do you consider the most harmful and why?
My personal research says all the vaccines are harmful,
Mhm.
but the more ingredients you pile up inside a vaccine, the combination vaccines, especially the MMR. So the MMR vaccine has a very toxic list of ingredients. So the first link, when you go on the CDC or FDA website, you can find the excipient summary. So the MMR vaccine contains MRC5 cells, including DNA and protein, then hydrolyzed gelatin, sodium chloride, sorbitol, MSG, sodium phosphate dibasic, and calf serum, which is the cow's blood. And it's a long list of ingredients. So the more ingredients you pile up inside a vaccine, the more toxic it can become. And that's the reason probably why Donald Trump, in the executive order last week, 10th of August, he has asked the CDC to split up the MMR vaccine. So right now, the pediatricians, they give the MMR vaccine as a combination shot altogether on a single visit. So Donald Trump has said that this could be lethal based on available research. A latest research done by the Makalo Foundation, they found out that the measles vaccine actually kills 20 times more children than measles itself. That the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease it's trying to prevent. And probably that's because all those ingredients from measles vaccine, mumps vaccine, and rubella vaccine are given all together, which are more toxic potentially as per Donald Trump. So he said that split it up. Give measles on a separate day, mumps on another day, and rubella on a third day. So,
But
but
they
as
say that vaccines are for the prevention and not a cure. It's a prevention, not a cure. What you'll say on that?
yes, so it's hypothetically, it's a theory that the vaccine is like, say, for example, if you know there's a war between, say, India and Pakistan,
Mhm.
and you know that they would attack you, so you send your soldiers before they even attack. So
Mhm.
vaccine is on the same concept that before the virus attacks you, you send some soldiers, which is antibodies, to protect you when the actual war happens. But this is only in theory. But when we come in the practice and look at the data available from clinical trials, we see that no long-term benefit has been shown of taking the vaccines, but the adverse events are so much that there is clear indication that the risk outweigh the benefits.
So we got your point, but if vaccines don't work and it has a safety concerns, then what is the reason that medical doctors they promote it?
So here's the thing. Dr. Paul Thomas, MD, when he found out that the vaccines are harmful, they're actually causing disease to his children in the pediatrics practice, he published that study. And the day he published that study, he lost his license and his study was retracted and he was vilified and being charged by the colleges. So you have to pay a price when you speak the truth. So most of the doctors, first of all, in their medical schools, they do not receive much knowledge about the vaccinations, its ingredients, long-term side effects. All they get to know is their schedule. When you have to inject the children after 2 months, 4 months, 18 months, this the schedule. They learn the schedule, but they do not learn what the vaccines actually contain. They do not go through the clinical trials and find out the long-term outcomes. So here's the challenge. If your pediatrician doctor is asking you to take the vaccine, just ask him, what are the five ingredients that this vaccine contains? Just name any five ingredients that this vaccine contains. And I think he would be looking around, or he would see some papers, or his eyes would be wide open, but he might not be able to answer
So
your question.
can you repeat the question? And you also said challenge. It means the same challenge as a 30 lakh rupees challenge which you quoted in one of your posts.
No, that 30 lakh challenge is a different challenge.
Okay.
So right now I'm saying that when a mother is being advised by a pediatrician doctor
Hmm.
to take a vaccine, say MMR vaccine, just ask that doctor, hey doctor, can you please name any five ingredients in this vaccine? And if you can do that, I will take the vaccine.
Hmm.
And you would say in 99.9% of the cases, the doctor won't be able to name even five ingredients that the vaccine contains. And we have seen already when we discussed the vaccine
Yes.
MMR, it has more than 15 ingredients. So if
Okay.
you can't even name five, that means you need to run away from the office and save your children.
And
So
what is your 30 lakh challenge then?
yeah, the 30 lakh challenge is the pediatrics doctors have been asking newborn children to take the hepatitis B vaccine. So when a child is born in a hospital, on the first day itself, first day of life, the doctor wants to inject him with hepatitis B vaccines on the pretext of preventing him from hepatitis B infection, which might lead to liver issues and cancer and other things. But here's the question. H hepatitis B vaccine contains 250 micrograms of aluminum. We know aluminum is neurotoxic. Anything that is neurotoxic injected inside your body has a potential to cause neurological issues, neurodevelopment disorders, which would be identified not before the child is at least 3 to 4 years of age when he starts learning, going to school. So when you inject someone on the first day of life, how are you going to assess the safety profile of it? And so I gave my 30 like challenge. If any doctor around the world can show me one single pure placebo controlled trial that shows that giving hepatitis B vaccines to the newborn children on the first day of life is safe and effective, I would give him 30 lakh rupees, 30 lakh rupees on record. So how you have to show that? Just send me one pure placebo controlled trial in which it has been demonstrated that the newborns who received the HPV hepatitis B vaccine had less long-term mortality, and also taking hepatitis B vaccine did not cause any additional incidence of autism, neurodevelopmental disorders, type 1 diabetes, any autoimmune disease, cancer, or infertility. If anyone can show me this data, I am ready to give him 30 lakh rupees.
So, does ever the world's pharma industry reached out to you on this scenario because you are quite loud on your own social media and on the public platforms? Did they ever reach out to you, Mr. Singh? What's happening?
So usually my phone, we operate more than five phones right now, and all the calls that we receive, I never pick them.
Okay.
So I never pick them because I only pick calls from those who book appointment with me and I only talk to them. Otherwise, my team would coordinate on messages. Usually, we do not pick up calls.
Okay.
The second thing is if we receive any threatening messages on our social media, WhatsApp, or anywhere, we immediately block them right away. We do not even go through the full message. Just when we spot that something is wrong with this message, we right away block it. There have been complaints here and they have tried to find me, but we have with the God's grace have been able to come out of their their traps.
Okay.
But the good thing is that because I'm not associated with the College of Physicians and Surgeons and the governing bodies or the medical bodies, it's a little bit easier for me. But those who are like medical doctors, board certified, and the nurses who are registered, they have more issues that. Especially in Canada, we have Dr. Roger Hodgkinson, we have Dr. Kulvinder Gill. We have nurses like Kristen, we have Sarah, we have this Dr. Paul Thomas, and many other doctors who are facing the charges now because they spoke the truth during COVID-19. But I,
Speaking the truth, consequences is the charges against you. Mr. Singh, HPV vaccine, does that cause infertility? Is that true?
well, I believe so based on the current evidence and when you know who funded the HPV vaccine. So the human papilloma vaccine, the Gardasil vaccine, has been highly propagated and funded by Bill Gates Foundation.
Yes.
Now, when you hear of the word Bill Gates, you know this guy in 2014 said that if the world creates good vaccines and healthcare systems, we can reduce the world population by about 15%, which
Mhm.
means good vaccines, less fertility. So, Mr. Nitin, if I would ask you a question that if we create good vaccines, what do you expect? Will the world population increase or decrease?
With a good vaccine, it should increase.
Yeah, with the good vaccines, we can increase the lifespan of the people, right? But what Bill Gates is saying, he's saying if we make good vaccines, we can reduce the world population. So now what would that mean?
Okay, that that's quite a debatable question. What does mean? So we can read between the lines. But the manufacturer of HPV vaccine, they are paying approximately 50 million to settle cases. So what happened in that scenario?
Yeah, because HPV vaccine leads to serious autoimmune conditions.
Mhm.
Serious autoimmune conditions. We have the data from the clinical trials itself. So 2.3% serious adverse events happened within 6 months of taking the HPV Gardasil vaccine. And these are serious systemic autoimmune disorders. I would name some of them: arthritis, autoimmune thyroiditis, celiac disease, type 1 diabetes, hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, inflammatory bowel syndrome, multiple sclerosis, nephritis, optic neuritis, psoriasis, lupus, and there's a long list that I probably cannot read it right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
So these disorders can be detected in your children if you take these vaccines. Now, what happened? Some of the people, they take it to the courts. So there were more than 200 lawsuits that were filed against Merck, the manufacturer of HPV vaccine,
Mhm.
for causing these diseases that we just discussed. So now Merck tried to settle it out of court by paying them $50 million. Now imagine when they say it's safe and effective, but they're also paying $50 million to settle the cases. What does it tell you? And also, this vaccine may even lead to death. I would tell you a case that was proven in the US court to cause death, and when Merck had to pay the mother of the child. So this story is about Christina. She took the HPV vaccine back in 2008, and within a few months she developed heart conditions. When she took the second dose, within a few weeks she died. Her mother complained that it is because of the vaccine, and then she took it to the court. It took her 8 years. 8 years struggle in the court, and then it was ruled out finally in 2016 that the vaccine caused the death and she had to be paid the compensation. So 8 years struggle in the court trying to prove that her daughter died after taking the vaccine. So it's a big thing. So vaccines are not safe and effective. It can also cause death.
How many pages are there in your book, The Vaccine Crime Report?
130.
130 pages, quite a big research you might have done. And across the world, there was a debate whether coronavirus pandemic was planned, whether it was a lab made or a man made. So, what is the reality as per your research and your book?
Well, if you ask me, because I have been looking not just the scientific database, but also the people behind the scheme. When you see Dr. And Anthony Fauci in 2017 or 2016, he said that there would be a surprise outbreak in the Trump administration. How did he know that there would be a surprise outbreak? And also Bill Gates, when he's writing email to Jeffrey Epstein, it's mentioned that let us do simulation, pandemic simulations. Let's work on those. Now, what is simulation? Simulation means a rehearsal, a practice. So they're actually discussing, let's practice the corona pandemic. And he also mentions in those emails, how can we reduce the number of poor people in the world? So what does reduction of population, pandemic simulation, Anthony Fauci announcing a surprise outbreak have to do? And then when we see Event 201, which is done 6 months before the virus was announced in the news, so they were already planning that. So it was not a virus that had to be stopped through a vaccine, but they had to inject the people with a vaccine that might cause infertility and heart issues and cancer and other issues. So they did a drama of the virus. So the virus was created, was launched, was propagated to give people the vaccine. So all the lockdowns and the masks and the distancing and the sanitizers and the repeated bombardment of news of virus was nothing but a marketing tool to make sure that the most people in the country would take the vaccine, which serves their other agendas, which I have mentioned in my book. That is the introduction to the New World Order. Yes.
Okay, introduction to the new world order. We read about that. So we recently we had seen, and after COVID, we had seen lot of heart attacks among the youth. We have seen youth standing in the queues. They've fallen down. We have seen the sportsmen. They've fallen down on the grounds. Is there any connection between these heart attacks among young population and the COVID vaccination? Is there any evidence if it is true?
Yes, you mentioned sports person. Let's take their example. Now, when there's a sports person, there's an athlete, we expect that these are the people with the best health and the best fitness levels. But what we have seen in the last 5 years, that's like a big number of athletes, people who go to the gym, people who play football, would play cricket, would play tennis, would go in Olympics, they are dying suddenly, a new phenomenon. If we look at historical figures, in the last 25 to 30 years, the average death count from sudden cardiac arrest in athletes was 29 per year, which would mean that normally in any year, about 29 athletes would die from sudden cardiac arrest. But since the COVID-19 vaccines were rolled out, the number shot up to 550. So 29 to 550 indicates a 18 times increase in the risk of sudden cardiac events in athletes. Now these are athletes, the fit guys. Imagine what's happening around in the general population. And now we have the data from vaccine adverse event reporting system, which shows that there have been more than 16 lakhs adverse events reported from the COVID-19 vaccine, which includes 38,000 deaths and also more than 200,000 hospitalizations, out of which 41,000 are life-threatening events, and serious side effects are more than 324,000. Now, this is underreporting. There was an HSS study by the US that shows that 1 to 10% of the vaccine injuries are actually reported, which would mean you need to multiply this figure at least by 10 to get the actual figure. So this is the amount of damage that the COVID vaccine is causing to the American people. And another important thing is they said that when we would bring the vaccine, we could reduce the overall mortality. Less people would die. COVID deaths will reduce. But the shocking thing was more people died in the United States of America after the rollout of COVID vaccine compared to the actual deaths caused by COVID virus itself. So more people are dying in 2021 compared to 2020 when the actual pandemic came. Imagine
We
that.
saw in US there was a testimony going for the Dr. Fauci also. They never invited you in that testimony because you spoke to. Did they ever reach out to you that come and you can be one of the researcher in that case?
No, I was not fortunate enough for that.
Okay, okay. Mr. Kamalpreet Singh, like autism, we have seen lot of cases here in Canada also across world autism cases. The numbers are very big. And you talked about the connection between paracetamol and autism. What is
Mhm.
that connection?
Yeah, so here's the important thing. When you take a vaccine, You inject yourself with foreign objects and heavy metals and toxic compounds which are not in nature designed to enter your body through the injectable manner. You would be naturally exposed to some toxins via air or say water and things like those, but you wouldn't directly inject them within you. Now, when you inject a vaccine, say you injected an MMR vaccine, now there is a like a big cocktail of toxic metals and foreign matter that's going inside your body. Now the body has a way to detox that out. It tries to make an attempt to get rid of those toxic accumulations in the body. It does it through various channels. Like one is to have a diarrhea. It would just have a diarrhea and throw the things out from the gastrointestinal tract. The other way would be to have a fever so that it would sweat out the waste through the skin. Also, it would have like say colds and coughs and runny noses to get the mucus out, release the toxins through the nose. Now, what happens is usually when people take vaccines, they develop one of these things: fevers, chills, and diarrhea, and coughs and runny noses, which the pediatrician tells the mothers and the parents of the child that do not worry. These are normal symptoms after taking the vaccine. Just take a Tylenol and you are good. And here's the catch. When you take the Tylenol has a mechanism of action by reducing the production of glutathione in the liver, which is a master antioxidant which helps the detoxification process. So now you have injected yourself with a toxic vaccine, and those toxins were the body was attempting to get those toxins out, but you took Tylenol and you blocked all those toxins within your body, plus the side effects of Tylenol harming your liver, and now you have created a perfect situation for causing autoimmune conditions like autism, neurodevelopmental disorders, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and the list is so long that Pfizer took it 9 pages to write it.
So for the autism, so excessive for the youth, excessive phone screen usage, is that the cause, or the vaccination is the cause for the autism?
Increased phone usage, screen time for children watching television, watching reels is a contributor to neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD, ADD, even autism, but it is not the primary cause. As per the latest report by McCullough Foundation that has reviewed over 100 studies between the association of autism and environmental factors, they have clearly mentioned in the conclusion of the report that the vaccinations are the single most preventable cause of vaccine of the autism.
Okay, so Bill Gates Foundation, as you mentioned before, also, so they fund most of the vaccination programs. So is there connection, any connection between the Epstein files, which remain into the controversy for a long time previous years?
Yes, yes. Bill Gates has written the email to Jeffrey Epstein that how can we reduce the number of poor people in the world? Let's do pandemic simulations. He even did a TED talks saying that if we make the good vaccines, we can reduce the world population. So there's a clear connection that why he is funding those vaccines, because those vaccines, especially when we talk about the HPV vaccine, which the Bill Gates often tries to promote in India, especially maybe because he doesn't like Indians. So when he promotes that in India, HPV vaccine, I would tell you some three main ingredients of the HPV vaccine. One is aluminum, the other is sodium borate, and there's polysorbate 80. All these three ingredients have the potential to cause reproductive issues. And that's the reason I put this study in my book also, that in the 8 million girls studied who took, some of them took the HPV vaccine and some of them did not take the HPV vaccine. Those who took the HPV vaccines had at least 25% less chances of getting pregnant compared to girls who did not take the HPV vaccine. So taking the HPV vaccine reduces your chance of getting pregnant, which is what Bill Gates is trying to do.
Okay. Kamalpreet ji, can you recommend some top 5 books which you can recommend to parents if they have to read more about the vaccination,
Yeah.
the effects, harms, or the benefits? So, which 5 books will you recommend?
Yeah, if parents are looking to make a benefits to risk analysis of vaccines, I would recommend Dr. Paul Thomas, MD's book, that is Vax Facts. This book has information pertaining to every vaccine and its ingredients and side effects, and you can make a good decision about taking or not taking the vaccine for your child. This is Vaccine Amendments by attorney Aaron Siri, who sued the CDC to show that there's no available evidence to prove that vaccines don't cause autism. And that's why CDC has now updated its website, and it says that vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim. Translation: vaccines may cause autism. So CDC has now admitted that. One of my books is The Vaccine Crime Report. This is very concise, 130 pages, probably one of the easiest to read. I would suggest this. And then there's Unavoidably Unsafe. This is written by board certified physician Dr. Jeffrey Bark, MD from US. And he has mentioned most of the vaccines that are on the CDC vaccine schedule with the side effects and the benefits. You can go through these. And here's the Vax and Vaxxed by Robert F. Kennedy and Brian Hooker, PhD. This book compiles all the vaccinated and unvaccinated studies, meaning they took two groups. One group received all the vaccines, and some vaccines have been independently identified, and the other group which did not take the vaccines or took less vaccines, and compared their health outcomes. And every study shows that those who took more vaccines had more diseases, and those who took less vaccines had less diseases, and those who took zero vaccines were relatively the healthiest of all the groups. So these are the, I think, 5 books.
So why was your YouTube channel that was deleted? What was the reason, and how many subscribers that have that time when it was removed?
So when I made a new YouTube channel during COVID pandemic, so we started from scratch. We reached about 10,000 subscribers, and when we reached 10,000 subscribers, and I made a video explaining that the COVID vaccine could lead to myocarditis, that's the inflammation of the heart, they deleted my YouTube channel. And not just my YouTube channel was deleted, they shadow banned me from Instagram. They stopped my live recording during a maskless shopping event that we did in Toronto, and they just stopped my live and said you cannot just record the live and you have been blocked and things like those. And even Facebook banned me because I was putting things about the COVID vaccine, and then they unbanned me after the COVID thing was over. But again, Facebook has restricted me 1 month ago, and I'm still restricted, and people are not receiving the recommendations for my videos because, again, I made a video saying vaccines are not safe and effective. Yeah.
So are you back on YouTube now?
I'm back on YouTube. I created a new channel. Again, I think it has got about 15,000 something subscribers now, but my YouTube is not that famous because they have deleted it so much and banned it so much that I never got a chance to properly share the YouTube videos. But I think on Instagram I have about a 500K following maybe.
And I also read a news and saw a video in which you said that police came to airport to get you. And what happened that time?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. The RCMP officers, the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, they tried to, so they were called on me. So how that happened was during the COVID-19 pandemic, I was traveling in airplanes without mask and without vaccines. So I had a religious exemption for vaccines and masks. So when I was flying from Toronto to Edmonton. So I cleared the securities, citing my exemptions, and I entered the airplane. We took off, and mid-flight, the air hostess, they started misbehaving with me, and they started debating with me that you must wear the mask and there's no way around, you must wear the mask even though you have the exemption on things like those. So I said, I'm not going to wear the face mask, you do what you want to do. So they threatened me. They said you would have to pay a fine of $5,000 or so dollars, and we will call the police on you. So I said, do what you want to do. You don't need to threaten me. So that's what they did. So they called the police, and now when we landed in Edmonton, 2 RCMP officers came inside the airplane and asked me to come out. So I took my stuff, went outside, and here's the good news. The police asked me, how was your flight? And I said the flight was great, but these people, they were like, they frustrated me so much that I was like, kind of, it was really a bad experience with that. So the police officer said, oh, no worries, you can now go, everything is clear. And here's the thing, I said, no, everything is not clear. It was so disturbing to have all that confrontation with the flight staff. We are not here to debate with the staff. We need to relax in the plane and go to our events. So I told them that I would file a lawsuit on these guys for doing what they did, discrimination on the basis of, say, religious exemption, or you would even say medical choices, because there is no actual scientific data that would say mask would prevent any disease. There's no evidence. I've written a full book on that. Do face masks really work? No, there is no scientific evidence. There is no clinical trial that would say wearing a face mask can prevent serious illness or disease. So why are you forcing that?
Yeah.
So I told
that we read in the US court testimonies also, that face masks or a 6 meters distance, that never worked, and Dr. Fauci was using his Fifth Amendment rights in the court that he was not answering anything when we saw those cases and testimonies
Yeah,
in the US courts.
earlier he said that if you say anything against me, you are not trusting the science. And now when we question him, I plead my fifth. On the advice of my lawyers, I plead my fifth. I plead my fifth 111 times. So this is not the science. Where's the science? I have compiled the science on the lockdowns and the face masks and everything about the New World Order in this book. And there's not a single concrete evidence that face masks can help you. So I cited these things to the police officers. I said that this is not working. You have to explain these people in the airline industry. So he went inside. Actually, the police went inside and asked the air staff that do not. I don't know what the police told the staff members, but something happened. So what happened when I was going back to Toronto on the same flight? So they recognized me on the check-in and they asked me, "Are you the same person who came from Toronto to Edmonton that day?" And I said, "Yes, I'm the same person." So the moment he recognized me, he took me and escorted me to the flight, and all throughout the way he was apologizing to me, and I didn't need to wear a mask. I exercised my exemption. So here's the thing, when they say vaccines are compulsory, masks are compulsory, ask them, where's the scientific evidence that these work? And secondly, it is compulsory by which law? Is there any law that says you have to take an experimental medical product? No, there's no law. Vaccines are voluntary and it's your choice.
Kamalpreet Singh ji, thank you very much for giving us a time. And in the end, we will say that keep safe. And are you not scared again?
Of whom?
Okay, so we wish you all the best with your research, and there is a disclaimer that whatever thoughts you express, that is your own, and it's a medical sign who have to prove you wrong or who have to prove you right, because we believe in medical science, but things is when you brought these concerns in front, these needs to be investigated, and we wish all the best to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.